In this video, we're going to go ahead and figure out how to use trigonometry to find a missing side of a right triangle. If you don't understand SOHCAHTOA and how to mark up your triangle, you should watch my video on Intro to Trig. But assuming you know that, let's get started. Alright, so here's our problem. And the first step we have is to label our sides H, O, and A for hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. Across from the right angle is our hypotenuse, and we go opposite of our 24 degrees to get our opposite side. That leaves us with adjacent on the bottom. Now the second step you can do is you can go ahead and cross out the unneeded side. By unneeded, I mean nothing's going on with that side. So you can see that x is the opposite side, 15 is the hypotenuse, and in this problem we don't care about the adjacent side. You can cross that out. It just makes it visually easier to figure out what we're going to use here. So now you got to use the two sides that we have to match it up with SOHCAHTOA. And this one's, you've got opposite and hypotenuse, that's going to be SO. So that tells us that we're going to use sine. Now we can go ahead and write our equation, which is sine of 24 degrees is equal to x over 15. Then our last step is to just go ahead and solve for the variable. In this case, we want to get rid of the divide by 15. So we're going to multiply both sides by 15. 15s will cancel out, and that actually leaves us with our answer. It's 15 times the sine of 24. And then on the calculator, you're going to get 6.101. Actually, let's take a look at how to use the calculator to get that. Calculators handle trigonometry in two basic directions. So if we look at this calculator, if you need the sine of 24 degrees, you just put in sine 24 degrees, hit equals, and it gives you your answer. And then from there, if you need to know the answer to our last problem, you can just go times 15, hit equals, and there's your answer. You could do this from the start by starting with the 15, and just go 15 times sine of 24, and there's your answer. Calculators that only display one line at a time tend to work in the opposite direction. So if you want the sine of 24 degrees, you actually type in 24 first and then hit sine. And then if we wanted the last answer, from there you just go times 15 and it gives you the answer. Likewise, you could start with 15 times 24, then hit the sine button. Now right there on the calculator, that's the sine of 24. You have to remember to hit equals to get your answer of 6.101. So you got to figure out which direction does your calculator work in, and then just always do it that way. Alright, next problem. If you feel you're ready to try this one on your own, go ahead and pause the video and see how far you can get. Alright, let's take a look at the answer. So you got to label your sides. So there's your hypotenuse. Across from the 51 degrees is your opposite side, and the 20 would be your adjacent side. In this one, we are not using the opposite, so you can cross it out. By the way, all these arrows, if you don't want to draw the arrow for the hypotenuse, you don't have to. I think you should draw the arrow for the opposite until you get really good at this. And the crossing out, that's entirely up to you. I just am giving you the way I think is the best way to do it. All right, moving on. We crossed out our unneeded side, so we have A and H. That means we're using CA. We're using cosine, and now we can write our equation. Cosine of 51 degrees equals 20 over x. Now solving the variable on this one's a little harder. We need to get rid of our fraction, so we multiply both sides by x. And that leaves us with x times the cosine of 51 degrees equals 20. So we divide both sides by cosine of 51 degrees, and we get our exact answer. Our exact answer on this is 20 divided by the cosine of 51 degrees. In the calculator, that gives us an answer of 31.780. The zeros there, just that shows that I did round it to 3 decimal places. And sometimes dividing on the calculator sometimes can present a little different challenge. So let's take a look at how you would use the calculator on this one. Alright, so the cosine of 51 degrees, it's 0.6293 with some other stuff. But since we want to divide by cosine of 51 degrees, you don't actually want to write that down on a piece of paper and then go 20 divided by and have to re-enter what you wrote down. Instead, here's what we're going to do. We'll go ahead and put 20 first and then divide by cosine 51 degrees, hit equals, and there's your answer. If this didn't work on your calculator, you got to go 20 divided by and then put in parentheses cosine of 51 degrees in parentheses, and that'll give you your answer. With the other calculator, remember you're going to type in 51 first, then hit cosine. That's the cosine of 51 degrees, but remember you don't want to go through the hassle of having to write that down and put it back in the calculator. So instead, you just start with 20, hit divide, then you hit 51, then cosine. Now that's the cosine of 51 degrees. You have to remember to hit equals to get your answer. All right, time for some practice problems. So go ahead and when you see the problem, pause the video and work it out on some scratch paper and then hit play to check your answer. All right, here's our first one. And the answer, you should have marked your hypotenuse, across from 38 degrees is your opposite, and then you got adjacent. We're not using the hypotenuse on this one, which leads O and A, which is TOA. Tangent of 38 degrees equals n over 42. And now you just have to multiply both sides by 42. And that gives us our exact answer, 42 times tangent of 38. And on the calculator, you need to get 32.814. Next problem. All right, mark your hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. This time we're not using adjacent. So we've got sine of 56 degrees is 89 divided by x. And so we've got multiply both sides by x to get rid of the fraction. And then we need to divide by sine of 56 degrees on both sides. Our exact answer is going to be 89 divided by sine of 56 degrees. On the calculator, you should get 107.353. Last problem. Mark your hypotenuse, your opposite side, and your adjacent. This time we're not using the opposite side. So A and H means we're using cosine. So cosine of 47 degrees is n over 33. Multiply both sides by 33 and you get your exact answer of 33 times cosine of 47 degrees. And on the calculator you should have gotten 22.506.